a lot, and good morning. I know we have a really long slate ahead of us, and there's many meetings, so anyone who's listening to me on the radio knows that we break for traffic every 10 minutes on the fives. So I'm used to keeping it under 10 minutes. We can do this. I am in Washington, D.C. I have a second program in Los Angeles as well on KBC. It's a completely separate show. So if anyone's here from California, Maryland, or Virginia, well, your voters want to hear from you, and I'm on the exhibition floor, which is the second floor in booth 5. And come on down and we can pre-record an interview, and I can use that on the shows or I can use it in a podcast. And that's the beginning of what I wanted to explain to you. If you're having trouble getting media, if you're having trouble getting your voice heard, if you're having trouble getting on radio or getting on podcasts, which frankly these days are even more powerful than regular broadcast radio in their own way because they're so reusable and re-listenable and shareable and all of those great things. What you need to do, if you don't mind taking a little advice from somebody who's looking for guests often about the topics that matter most to the people in our neighborhoods. You know, I'm a local radio host. Even though I'm in 2 big markets, we talk about what's going on in people's neighborhoods, in their schools. That's what fires them up. And when they listen to a national radio host like Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin, and they're great, they are giants, they're amazing, but they talk about these very big, broad issues that are important and critically vital to how we make our decisions on a daily basis in politics, but it doesn't always translate down to who's sitting on the school board. What I like to say to my listeners all the time is that the mainstream media in this country, we obsess, and frankly, we obsess over who wins one election every 4 years, over who sits in the White House. And what I like to say to my listeners is, what happens in your house ultimately is more important than what happens in the White House. That's how our founders designed this country, right? Federalism. I love that. Don't you love federalism? Well, I mean, do you think Alexander Hamilton and George Washington and John Adams, do you think they'd be happy with the fact that everyone in this country, whenever any event happens, they immediately say, what will the president do about it? It's the last thing that they wanted. They obsess about that one election, and God knows we're obsessing about it right now, and yet they can't tell you one person who sits on their school board. They can't tell you one person who sits in their county supervisor's office, or for that matter, who sits in their state legislatures. That's a problem. And I think it's also a problem because politicians don't do a really great job of talking about what they do and why it matters. I can't tell you how many emails I get or my producer gets from the communications person from a state legislator or a state senator that says, you know, we'd really like to get so-and-so on Larry's show today because there's a really important subcommittee meeting about a markup. All right, you do 6 minutes on a really important subcommittee meeting on a markup bill. That's not how you communicate an idea, right? That's not what people care about. They care about what it matters to them and how it's really going to resonate, and that's how you have to present your work to them. I'm on Fox News a lot, and they have me on opposite Leslie Marshall, who is a Democrat. She's a Democrat pundit, Democrat talk show host, because they like to have the conservative talk show host and the liberal talk show host. And she's a friend, and I like her, and we go back and forth a lot. And I have her on my radio show a lot. And I had her on this week asking her about the 2020 election right now for the Democrats. I say, you know, who's got the power? What do you think of Elizabeth Warren, you know, tying Joe Biden right now and all this stuff? And where's Bernie Sanders? And she said something very interesting that you need to really take to heart. She said, you know, 4 years ago when Bernie Sanders ran against Hillary Clinton, he was a socialist. And he proclaimed that he was a socialist. And he had all of these ideas that were socialist. And he was like, you know, really a novelty for the Democrats. But, you know, now his ideas are pretty much mainstream ideas for the party. And she's right. She's right. Now, if that doesn't motivate you to get out there and actually talk about the beauty and power and excitement of free markets and liberty, I don't know what to tell you. Because the people who sit across the aisle from you who don't embrace I don't care what party they're in, but if they don't embrace those 3 ideas, they're taking this country in the wrong direction, and you know that. And here's how it manifests itself in how you can communicate those ideas in a way that really will grab people. Think about what their policies are, and then turn it around in terms of what it means to the voter, what it means to their everyday lives. People ask me all the time, how come young people like socialism all the time? How do we get young people to vote for us if we believe in free markets and we believe in limited government? Here's how you do it. Do you remember when you were 16 years old and you got your driver's license? Do you remember the feeling that you had the first time you sat behind the car alone, without mom and dad right there? That time when you were the only person in the car and you had the key and you had a full tank of gas, and you realized at that moment that you could pretty much go wherever you wanted. You could take that road and go into a rural area, or you can take that road and go into the city, or you can take this road and go see, if you're close to the beach, you can go to the beach. If you're close to the mountains, you can go to the mountains. But you had that power, you had that control. That's freedom. That's the freedom that you felt when you were 16 years old, and 2 years later, you were ready to vote. And that was a critically important feeling, because you knew that you were an adult and you had control over your life and you had control over your destiny, and you could make that determination and no one could tell you what to do, for the most part. Do you remember that feeling? Now, what do the socialists in this country stand for when they say we want the Green New Deal? They stand for mass transportation across the board for as many people as they can squeeze into a train. You talk to a young person and say, oh, you like the Green New Deal? You like mass transportation? You're like, okay, so you get on the train and you go where the train tells you to go. And you get off, and once you get off, well, what if where you need to go isn't really close to where the train lets off? Oh, well, then you have to get on a bike or walk and get to that place that you want to go. And then when you're done for your day, you get back onto the light rail and you cram into that car, if you make it. If not, you got to wait another 10 minutes for the next light rail car, and you cram into that, and that takes you where the government dictates you're supposed to go and stop, and then somehow you get back to your house. And that's how the Green New Deal works. That's the opposite of freedom. That's the government telling you where to go and how to get there. So if we stand for anything, yes, we stand for big ideas like this, but those ideas need to mean something to a young person who's all they've heard, as Steve just told you, is what they've learned in the public schools. And so if I were running for office and I was faced up against somebody who was talking about the Green New Deal and all of the great light rail projects and all the great mass transit projects and road diets, oh, who's got the road diets going on in their states? We've got a traffic problem downtown, so the solution is to remove a lane and give it to the bikes. Have you actually sat, has any of the legislators actually sat and watched those bike lanes sit empty 10 minutes at a time and no one's using them? And meanwhile, there's a traffic jam because there's been a road diet. So here's what I would do if I was sitting in a debate against a politician who's extolling all of those great things and saying, oh yeah, hey, listen, young people care about these things, and so we want to make sure that we appeal to young people and their desire for socialism and their desire for the Green New Deal and their desire to really take care of the transportation problems in this country. I would talk to them about that feeling of getting behind a car. I would talk to them about getting that driver's license and the fact that with that car and with your driver's license and with those keys and with a full tank of gas, American pumped and refined gas, that they can then go anywhere they want in this country. And no one's going to tell them no. No government is going to tell them no. The only thing that's going to stop them is their parents or their girlfriend. I would say to them, yeah, you're right, you've got great ideas there, but here's the deal. That guy over there, that's the party of light rail. My party, we're the party of the muscle car. That's sexy, and that captures the imagination of where young people are right now. And yes, intellectually, if they're trying to impress the barista who gives them a latte so they can take them out on a date, they'll say, oh yeah, it's really important to me, the Green New Deal, I'm really into it, yeah. But inside, you know that they want to go where the open road will take them. That's what America has always been about. Why should we take the back seat to romantic ideas like that? Freedom is sexy. Liberty is sexy. We don't talk about this as if we're just with a green eye shade and we're sitting in a committee room talking about how we can negotiate one line item on a bill. Be sexy and talk about the big ideas of what freedom really means to the American heart, and you're gonna win. All right, that's what I would do if I were running for office, but I'm not, nor do I intend to at any time. But I really do hope that you understand that what happens in neighborhoods, what happens in families, what happens in schools really are more important than what's happening in Washington, D.C. I do a radio show in Washington, D.C., and that's what the people in Washington, D.C. care about. They care about what their county government is doing. They don't even want to talk about Trump half the time. That's rare in talk radio these days. We've lost sight of that. And I think if you keep bringing it back home to their neighborhoods, their houses, and what's going on in their kids' schools, your message will get out. And always position it that way when you're trying to get on somebody's radio program, because that's what we hosts want to talk about too. I appreciate your time. I know you're very busy. Thanks. Please come and see me, and I'd love to have you on my podcast with Washington Examiner or in LA or in Washington. Thanks a lot, and have a great day. Thanks for everything you do.